The 5 subtle ways avoidants show disrespect in relationships. When we think about disrespect in relationships, we often imagine loud arguments, insults, or obvious betrayals. But with avoidance, disrespect usually doesn't show up in explosive ways. Instead, it hides in subtle behaviors, little patterns that seem small at first, but slowly eat away at your sense of worth. If you've ever been with an avoidant partner, you might have felt this strange mix of being loved one moment and dismissed the next. And while avoidance may not consciously mean to disrespect, the way they protect their independence can come across as cold, dismissive, or even cruel. In this video, we're breaking down the 5 most subtle ways avoidants show disrespect in relationships, so you can recognize them, stop excusing them, and finally decide what you're willing to tolerate. The first subtle form of disrespect is emotional dismissal. Think about what happens when you try to share something that really matters to you. Maybe you've had a hard day, maybe you're feeling insecure, or maybe you just want to be heard. In a healthy relationship, those moments build closeness. But with an avoidant partner, your words often land on cold stone. Instead of curiosity or comfort, you get silence, eye rolls, or a quick change of subject. On the surface, it might seem harmless, just someone avoiding discomfort. But underneath, it's a message that says, your feelings don't matter enough for me to face them. And that cuts deep. Over time, you start editing yourself. You stop sharing the little things, then the big things, until one day you realize you've built a wall inside yourself just to survive their wall. Emotional dismissal doesn't yell, it doesn't slam doors. It slowly drains intimacy by convincing you your emotions are a burden instead of a bridge. And that is one of the quietest yet sharpest forms of disrespect. The second subtle form of disrespect is inconsistent presence. Avoidance can give you glimpses of closeness that feel intoxicating. One week they're engaged, affectionate, planning the future, and you feel like the relationship is finally finding its rhythm. But then, as if a switch flips, they retreat. Plans get canceled, calls go unanswered, conversations dry up, and you're left confused, questioning what you did wrong. Here's the truth. This inconsistency isn't really about you. It's their fear of intimacy tightening its grip. But to the person on the receiving end, it feels like rejection. It feels like, I'll show up only when it's safe for me, not when you actually need me. And that erodes trust faster than almost anything else. Because trust is built on consistency. And when you can't count on their presence, you start living in uncertainty. That unpredictability is its own form of disrespect because it treats your emotional stability like it's negotiable, when in reality, it should be sacred. The third subtle form of disrespect is minimizing your needs. Everyone in a relationship has needs. Wanting reassurance, closeness, affection, or clarity is not weakness. It's human. But avoidants often feel overwhelmed when those needs surface. Instead of engaging, they might laugh it off, make a joke at your expense, or suggest that you're too much or too needy. At first, you might brush it off, thinking they didn't mean harm, but slowly the doubt seeps in. You start wondering, am I overreacting? Am I asking for too much? And here's the dangerous part. Over time, you begin lowering your standards for connection. You start accepting crumbs, telling yourself that maybe your needs really are unreasonable, but they're not. Minimizing your needs is not just a bad habit, it's a form of disrespect. It sends the message, my boundaries are firm, yours are flexible. My comfort matters, your comfort can wait. A healthy relationship honors both people's needs equally. Anything less slowly breaks the foundation. The fourth subtle form of disrespect is withholding affection as control. Now this one can feel confusing because avoidants don't always do it intentionally, but the pattern is unmistakable. When they feel pressured, cornered, or overwhelmed, they withdraw. Affection dries up. The kisses, the touches, the simple gestures of love, suddenly they're gone. Even words like, I love you might be locked away, not because they don't feel them, but because saying them feels like losing control. To the avoidant, withholding is a defense. To you, it feels like punishment. The unspoken message is, if you push me, you'll lose me. And so you start walking on eggshells, afraid to bring up your needs, afraid to rock the boat, just to avoid losing those scraps of closeness. But here's the truth. Love that feels conditional isn't really love. It's control wrapped in affection. And when affection is used like a bargaining chip, the relationship stops being safe. It becomes a game of power instead of a place of refuge. That's not just hurtful, it's deeply disrespectful. The fifth and most damaging subtle form of disrespect is erasing your importance. This one is quiet but devastating. It shows up in the little things, forgetting the details of your life, dismissing the milestones that matter to you, treating your presence as if it's replaceable. They might say they value independence, and on the surface, it looks like they're just protecting their freedom. But to you, it feels like invisibility. It feels like being present in someone's life but never truly mattering. And that's the deepest wound of all. Because relationships aren't just about love. They're about mattering, about being seen, about knowing that your presence makes a difference. When an avoidant erases your importance, even in subtle ways, the message you receive is, "You'll never mean as much to me as I mean to myself." That's not partnership. That's not love. That's erasure. And when you feel erased, the relationship stops being a place of belonging and becomes a place of quiet suffering. Now, here's what's important to understand. Avoidants don't usually wake up thinking, "How can I disrespect my partner today?" Most of these behaviors are survival mechanisms. They were shaped by early experiences that taught them closeness equals danger. So they use these subtle strategies to protect themselves. But just because it's unintentional doesn't mean it's harmless. Disrespect, whether loud or silent, has the same effect. It makes you feel small, unwanted, and alone in the relationship. And if you keep tolerating it, you start disrespecting yourself. So what can you do if you recognize these patterns? The first step is awareness. Once you can name the subtle forms of disrespect, emotional dismissal, inconsistent presence, minimizing your needs, withholding affection, and erasing your importance, you can no longer gaslight yourself into believing it's not that bad. The second step is boundaries. Boundaries are not ultimatums, they're standards. They say, "This is what I will and will not accept in love." Avoidants often test boundaries, but when you hold firm with calm strength, you earn their respect. Some avoidants will rise to the challenge and learn to engage differently. Others will fall away because they're not ready. Either way, you win, because you're no longer sacrificing your dignity for crumbs of love. At the end of the day, the subtle disrespect of an avoidant is not about you being unworthy, it's about their fear of intimacy. But your worth is not negotiable. You deserve a relationship where your emotions are honored, your presence is consistent, your needs are respected, your affection is reciprocated, and your importance is undeniable. And whether that happens with an avoidant or without one, the choice begins with you refusing to settle for less.